I considered Sparta the other day, and it struck me that it has a small population, but obviously it's the most powerful and well-renowned Greek city-state from which I began. Wondering myself as to how this circumstance might have arisen then, when I considered the legal institutions among the Spartans, I found my response here. Lycurgus providing the Spartans with the rules they obey. Lycurgus did not copy or follow the rules of other city-states. They created a new legal code that was utterly different from other states, and it is this mechanism that has produced his country and his people. Supremely successful other Greek parents send their boys to a school to learn writing and music. These youngsters, however, are indulged by offering them soft footwear, comfortable clothing, and as much food as they can eat. Spartan boys do not have their feet softened by wearing sandals. Lycurgus instructed that the guys should go barefoot to harden their feet. He believed that a barefoot youth would learn to leap, jump, and run faster than any boy hampered by sandals. This habit of going barefoot would also enabling youths to quickly climb hills and descend steep slopes without the risk of injury. Lycurgus furthermore did not allow Spartan youths to be ruined by excessive clothing. Actually, he introduced the custom of wearing one single style of attire. Throughout the year, he thought that this habit would prepare the citizen to tolerate seasonal variations in heat and frigid extremes experienced on military campaigns regarding their diet. Lycurgus required the officials to offer enough to nourish the boys, but never allowed them to fully meet their hunger. He believed that those who trained and exercised under these situations would be better equipped to function on an empty stomach. Consequently, if a command was issued on campaign, then adult Spartans would be better equipped to undergo scarcities of supplies. They could eat whatever was available and still keep good health and endurance. Lycurgus also felt that a diet that kept the body thin would increase height and build better than by eating fattening foods. Yet Lycurgus was also concerned that the boys might endure too much hunger. He therefore permitted them to remedy this by stealing food. The goal of this practice is obvious to everyone. He provided the guys is a challenging obstacle that encouraged resourcefulness. A person plotting theft will spend restless nights planning the action. He must mask his intent, recruit observant accomplices, lookouts and informants, and await his opportunity for his proposed enterprise. It is certain that Lycurgus invented this approach to make the boys more creative in getting supplies as further preparation for combat. Of course, someone would wonder if the Spartans end or steal. Then why is the child who is for thieving whipped as punishment? I reply, because a learner must be punished for not correctly executing the activity he is being instructed to achieve. So the Spartans punish those who got caught because they were stealing badly. Some girls are destined to become moms and are brought up in the traditional ways. They are only allowed a modest existence with little access to any extra consumables or even luxuries. They deny wine, or else their drink is diluted with water, lowering its impact. Greeks expect their daughters to sit around and be less active and more reclusive than males. They imagine that women raised in this manner will be content to labor quietly within the household, doing the labor of woolwork or other handicrafts. But how can we expect women raised up in this manner to give birth to superior children? Lycurgus thought that the labor thousand slave women would be sufficient to supply enough gear and conduct any other household craft projects. He believed parenthood was the most important function of freeborn citizen women. Consequently, his prime commandment was that girls should endure as much physical preparation for this role like men do for theirs. Therefore, he established athletic races and challenges of fitness for women competition. For Lycurgus believed that if both parents are powerful and dynamic people, they will produce stronger offspring. In addition to this, he withdrew a man's right to take a wife whenever he desires to do so. His commands assured that males marry when they are in their physical prime, as this enhances the production of the healthiest children. If a guy is hampered by old age or infirmity, another male in good mental and physical strength can procreate on his behalf. Equally, if a lady is unable to generate healthy children, then a man can seek a surrogate supplying her husband, consented. These offspring would be brothers but with no claim on property. Therefore, Lycurgus established regulations regarding the breeding of children that were very different from the other city-states. By this means, he successfully populated Sparta with a race of males who are superior in size and strength. Anyone who wants to view this can inspect the Spartans and judge the result for themselves. If a man is captivated by their physical shape of a boy, that connection is disallowed as it is an abomination. This restriction has prevented the practice. It is as infrequent as incestual intercourse with children or sexual interactions between brothers and sisters. I'm not surprised that other Greeks refuse to trust this assertion that their laws do not oppose this behavior. This is the Spartan system of education, and I've explained how it differs from that of other Greek city-states. Outsiders can clearly judge which system produces the more obedient, respectful, and self-controlled citizens. Lycurgus was concerned that when their warden was absent, the boys would have no ruler. He therefore handed the authority to any Spartan citizen who happened to be around. He granted them powers to compel the guys to do some activity or penalize them for misconduct. This made the lads more respectful of authority. Lycurgus demanded that Spartan youths walk insolent and keep their hands concealed behind their cloaks. They must keep their gaze fixated on the ground and not look directly at adult citizens. These rules have proved that a humble condition when practiced by guys can far exceed the modesty anticipated from women. Indeed, I would anticipate a stone monument to speak before I could hear an outcry from a Spartan teenager. I suppose it would be easier to capture the attention of a bronze figurine. Indeed, Lycurgus believed that if he could encourage young men to compete against each other to attain particular positions, then everyone might achieve a higher level of masculine prowess. I will explain how he fostered this competitiveness. This struggle is most highly valued by the gods. Each competitor aspires for superiority with all their personal might. So by these measures, they support and enhance the city-state. I've described the codes that Lycurgus enforced to govern the successive stages of citizen life. I will now describe the system he built for all adult individuals. Lycurgus erected customs at Sparta that are different from other Greek communities. In other city-states, males try to make as much money as they can. Some citizens are farmers, others are ship owners or merchants, or they practice different artisan skills. As yet in Sparta, Lycurgus banned freeborn citizens to have any participation in these enterprises. He urged that Spartan citizens concern themselves only with behaviors that assured their political power and independence. The conduct of war, his measures guaranteed that all citizens had a comparable standard of living, governed meals, and the food supply was collected from equal contributions in the dining clubs. So this diminished the attraction of wealth for the sake of indulgence. There is also no temptation to acquire wealth to spend on pricey clothing. Males are not assessed on their attire, but by the excellence of their physique. A man may amass wealth to spend on his eating pals, but he obtains higher respect from personal effort and performance than could be obtained from material offers. Lycurgus also introduced various measures to make it hard for Spartans to make money by unfair tactics. Firstly, he established a system of currency involving strong iron bars. Even a sum as small as 10 men could not be relocated into a family without the master and his servants being aware of the transaction. A huge sum of this money would fill a room and demand a wagon for transfer. Furthermore, Sparta has regulations enabling property searches, and if gold and silver were discovered on a premises, then a fine was imposed. Money-making was consequently abolished. As the main emphasis of the city-state, Lycurgus found the Spartans living in family households like the other Greeks, but he felt that these exclusive venues limited the full coherence of society. He therefore developed dining areas for the Spartans in places exposed to public check. The food available at these eating areas is always adequate to ensure that the citizen does not receive too much or too little, like Lycurgus. Also, remove the practice of compulsory drinking. The tradition of refilling a cup passed down a line of guests. He thought that this practice destroyed both the body and the intellect. Instead, he stated that every person had to have their own cup and sip only when they wanted to. Lycurgus thought that this was the least harmful and most gratifying manner to consume wine. These public dining locations also removed the chance that men might squander their money and family inheritances by presenting feasts filled of gluttonous foods and overabundant liquids. Lycurgus also saw the impact that rations had on workers. An individual who work should owing to his duties or personal character will have a better physique. He consequently required the senior instructor in every gymnasium to set activities appropriate to the food amounts being consumed. Their training exercises equally enhanced their legs, arms, and necks. I personally believe that Lycurgus succeeded in this measure, but the Spartans are certainly the healthiest and most robust of all males. Spartan institutions differ in other departures from conventional Greek traditions. In most city-states, each man has power of his own, children, servants, and property, but Lycurgus wanted to assure that all citizens possessed a common unity and gained advantage from each other. He consequently gives every father authority over other men's children. When fathers have this authority, they will treat other children like they expect their own to be treated. Indeed, it is considered a dishonor if a kid complains to his father after being assaulted by another boy's father. The son is extremely likely to receive another beating. A similar system existed for horses, and if a citizen falls ill or has to reach somewhere immediately, he has permission to borrow a horse from anywhere he finds it. Lycurgus contrived many fantastic plans to make the citizenry happily obey his laws. But one of his most ingenious was to take his legal code to Delhi, the religious center of the Greek world. Before presenting it to the Spartan public, Lycurgus arrived at Delphi accompanied by the most significant Spartan citizens, and previously submitted his query to the divine Apollo. He asked the god if it was better for Sparta to follow his new constitution and obey the laws he had devised. When the god answered that this constitution helped Sparta in every manner, Lycurgus returned to his homeland and offered his laws to the population. But he also informed them that anyone who rejected the judgment of Apollo as disclosed by the Paeon oracle would be guilty of sacrilege. Another feat of Lycurgus merits admiration. He made his people prefer an honorable death in battle to a disgraceful life, as a coward avoiding combat. This is a gain because the Spartans lose a smaller proportion of their warriors by remaining firm in combat rather than retreating from danger. It seems troops generally avoid death on the battlefield by displaying valor, rather than cowardice. Bravery is a great motivation for men on the battlefield, making them stronger and more resourceful, and obviously glory comes from valor. Therefore all men crave it. Lycurgus ensured that the brave would be granted happiness and the coward tortured to sorrow. But I must explain his ways in other Greek city-states. An proved coward only suffers the result of being considered a coward. He goes to the same market as the brave man and sits beside him. He may even choose to attend the same gymnasium. But every Spartan would be humiliated to have a coward with him in the dining place, or matched against him in a wrestling bout. When teams are picked for sport and athletic contests, the coward is always excluded. He gets ejected from the chorus and given a position of shame at religious gatherings. He must give up his deceit at any function, even to a junior citizen. He's listed among the unmarried ladies and allocated a household job to join in their conversations. Regarding the lack of husbands, he will be denied a wife and not gain any benefits from this, for if he strolls around looking relaxed, like a man without concerns, he will be set upon, being beaten by his betters. So much disgrace is put upon these cowards. The dying seems preferable. Certain legislation codes seem to appear weird and antiquated to other Greeks, for although they recognize these practices and praise the institutions, no other state will implement them. The advantages I have outlined benefit a state during peacetime and in battle, but I can also illustrate how the initiatives introduced by KGUs enhanced the Spartan military organization and made it superior to all other systems. The honors showered on a king in his own homeland do not substantially surpass those enjoyed by an ordinary citizen. This was deliberate, since Lycurgus wanted to prevent any king from feeling despotic pride or cause the citizens to envy him when observing his royal entitlements. However, the laws of Lycurgus do reveal real veneration for kings in their funeral rites. This is the only situation when the rulers of the Spartans are commemorated not as mere men, but as imaginary demigods. When war is declared, the council publishes a declaration stating the fixed age restriction for a levy of troops. First, they recruit the horsemen and hoplites. Then they determine the necessity for males with unique craft talents, and they fill various roles. This means that when on campaign, the army are properly supplied with all the important materials and talents. They require all the equipment and weapons that the army requires are assembled prior to the campaign, like Kus arranged for. So only to don a red military cloak, as this garment was thought to be the most manly suit and least light clothes worn by ladies like Lycurgus, permitted the younger males to wear their hair long since it improved their physique, making them appear taller and more menacing. The prevalent opinion is that Spartan infantry formations are incredibly complex, but this is wrong. Their structures are easy to organize such that no one who is tracking the movement of his colleagues can make any error. Some soldiers have the privilege of commanding the ranks, and the rest simply follow orders. Their legislation also compels. All Spartans must practice regular gymnastic exercises on campaign. This bolsters their pride and permits them to demonstrate their physical strength. The racing routes are always inside their regimental space so that no individual is ever far from his weapons as he exercises before battle. An order is made for the soldiers to polish their military kit. It's also accustomed for the young warriors to comb and adorn their hair before fighting. Then they are reminded of their duties and anticipated to be boisterous the men. Then shout encouragements to their officers. Anyone viewing these arrangements must undoubtedly assume that all other Greek soldiers are amateurs, merely improvising their duties. Only the Spartans are the genuine artisans and masters of warfare. The Greeks that awaited the Persians in that place were these of the Spartans: 300 soldiers at arms, 1,000 Tans and Maenans from Orinus in Arcadia, 120, and 1,000 from the rest of Arcadia besides these Arcadians, 400 from Corinth, 200 from Phas, and 80 Mayans from Boeotia, 700 Thespians, and 400 Thebans. All these have their general siege city, its own, but he that was most recognized and was leader of the whole army was Leonidas of Ladon. These the men with Leonidas were dispatched before the rest by the Spartans, that by the sight of them the rest of the allies might be moved to arm and not, like the others, take the Persian part. Such had been their objective. But the Greeks at Thermopylae, whom the Persian drew adjacent to the entrance of the pass, began to lose heart and consider whether to quit their post. Leonidas expressed his vote for remaining where they were and sending messages to the cities to demand aid, realizing that he and his were too few to beat off the Median host. While they thus debated, Xerxes sent a mounted watcher to check how many they were and what they had in hand. The horseman came up to the camp and observed and overlooked it. There he saw some of the males at work out and others brushing their hair, amazed at the sight, and taking meticulous note of their numbers. He galloped back unmolested, Nompi pursuing nor at all, Reg guarding him. So he returned and informed Xerxes all that he had observed. When Xerxes learnt that he could not comprehend the truth, basically that the Lacedaemonians were preparing to slay to the best of their power or be slaughtered. What they did appeared to him funny, easy to organize such that no one who is tracking the movement of his colleagues can make any error. Some soldiers have the privilege of commanding the ranks and the rest. Wherefore he sent for Demaritus the son of Ariston, who was in his camp, and when he came, questioned him of all these matters that he might grasp what it was that the Lacedaemonians were about out. I've told you already mentioned Demaritus of these folks when we were going out for Hellas. But when you heard, you mocked me. Now hear me once more. These warriors are come to fight alongside us for the passage, and for that they are prepared for. It is their custom to adorn their hair whensoever they are about to put their lives in jeopardy. Moreover, I warn you that if you conquer these, and what leaves behind it Sparta, there is no other nation among men. O king that will abide and defy you, now are you face to face with the finest royalty in city, and the most valiant men in Hellas. Cyrus judged what was said to be absolutely incredible, and further questioned of him how they would battle, despite his army being so few. O King, Darius answered, call me a liar if the event of this be not what I tell you yet. For all that Xerxes would not believe him. For the duration of 4 days, the king waited eternally, expecting that the Greeks would go to flight. But on the 5th, seeing them not withdrawing, and deeming that their remaining there was but shamelessness and folly, he was angered. The Greeks at Thermopolymerization were divided, some urging that they should not leave their post, and some disputing, and presently they parted, asunder, these taking their departure, and dispersing each to their own cities, and those resolving to remain where they were with Leonidas. It is reported, actually, that Leonidas himself sent them away, desiring in his care for them to save their lives, but judging it unbecoming for himself and the Spartans to desert their post, which they had initially come to defend. And so Xerxes, having its son gave libations, made his assault. The foreigners that were with Xerxes attacked. But the Greeks with Leonidas, knowing that they departed to their death, now met their adversaries outside the Naros, and many of the foreigners were there slaughtered for their leaders, came behind the firms with scourges, and forced all the men forward with whips. Many of them were driven into the sea, and there drowned, but more, by far, were trampled down bodily by each other. None regarding who it was that perished, for inasmuch as the Greeks recognized that they must die by the hands of those who come around the mountain, they threw forth the greatest of their strength against the foreigners in their carelessness and frenzy. By this time, the spears of most of them were broken, and they were killing the Persians with their swords. There in that tribulation fell Leonidas, fighting most gallantly, and with him other famous Spartans. So, 2 brothers of Xerxes fell there in the battle, and there was a big battle between the Persians and the Lacedaemonians over Leonidas's body, till the Greeks of their valor dragged it away, and 4 times put their adversaries to flight. They defended themselves with their swords, as many as yet had such, and then with fists and fangs, till the strangers overwhelmed them with missile weapons. Thus did the men of Laodon and Thesp themselves, yet the boldest of them all, it is stated, was Dionys, a Spartan, of whom certain saying is reported before they joined combat with the MS, it was told to Dionys that the enemies were so many that when they shot with their bows, the sun was concealed by the myriad of arrows, yet being in no way disturbed by this, Dian stated, "You bring us good news, and if the mist conceal the sun, we shall fight them in the shade. All these and them that had died, before any had departed at Leonidas's bidding, were buried where they fell. And there is an inscription over them, which is this: 4,000 warriors. Flower of Pelops' land did hither against 300 myriads stand. This is the inscription common to all the Spartans. Nonetheless have one for ourselves. Go inform the Spartans, that whatever passes by that hear, obedient to their words wheelie. Now I'm sure you will question me, if the regulations of Larus are still obeyed, without change in our own era. Well, I cannot address this question with any confidence. I know that it was formerly forbidden for Spartan citizens to reside overseas owing to the depressing effect of foreign contact. Spartans preferred to remain in their native communities, satisfied with small prosperity. But today they are governors, independent city-states, and vulnerable to all the corrupting effects of flattery and bribery. In ancient times, they were frightened to be found in possession of gold. Yet today they are boastful of such belongings. In actuality, it is a popular aim of many leading Spartans to spend the rest of their life beyond their homeland as governors or administrators of some affluent foreign territory. In the past, Spartan leaders strove to be worthy of prestigious office within their state. But now, they shamefully plot to assert places of power in outside, when the Greeks used to come to Sparta requesting the state to lead them against reputed wrongdoers, but lately numerous. Greeks are calling upon one another to oppose any revival of Spartan supremacy. I am not surprised that these complaints are being directed at the Spartans. It is apparent that they no longer obey or manifest the will of their gods and the laws of Larus.